Hello, football lovers. This is MyOgba Football Fantasy, where we discuss the beautiful game of football. We have been talking about the UEFA Champions League for the past few weeks. It is semi-finals, and we had the quarterfinal bring entertaining football, where Real Madrid fell to Arsenal. We had Borussia Dortmund fall to Barcelona, and PSG triumphed over Aston Villa, with Inter Milan withstanding the ferocity of Bayern Munich's attack to make it to the semi-finals. Barcelona will be welcoming Inter Milan to the Zurich for the first leg of the semi-finals. This promises to be an interesting time. One of the most formidable attacking force in Champions League going against one of the most formidable defensive force in the Champions League. First off, let's start differently. Who would you give this one? Inter Milan or Barcelona?
I'll go with Barcelona.
You go with Barcelona.
Yes.
All right. Why would you go with Barcelona?
All right. Thank you very much. First of all, both teams they've been doing well in their various league, while Barcelona is leading in Spain. Inter, on the other hand, is also leading in Italy. But on goal difference. Yes, on goal difference.
Both are going for the
Exactly, they are going for a treble. So one thing, why I'm actually giving it to Barcelona is, Barcelona to an extent has a comfortable lead at the top of at the top of La Liga, and also if you are to compare the quality of players that Barcelona has, and over the course of their performance this season in the Champions League, they've actually done well. And also, don't let us forget that recently, with what Flick has done with the team, Barcelona is actually playing with flair. In fact, most people would be surprised with the second leg defeats in the hands of Dortmund. But aside that glitch with the Dortmund second leg performance, over the course of this season, Barcelona, they've actually done well in all fronts.
Oh, that is it. Barcelona truly adore well in offense, but they have lost their Max Nancy AJ. Robert Lewandowski will be out for approximately 3 weeks. Not only that, the fiery run of Alejandro Balde less about to will be sorely missed. But they do have wrap-ups in Gerard Martin and Hector Ford. Yes, they do have backups. How well do you think these Jules would be in favor or against Barcelona?
Yes, I think it will have very easy. I won't say slightly. Especially your Andowski's individual is going to really have a very big effect on the team, especially when you're playing uh, Inter Milan with their low block.
So Lewandowski has 40 goals
On this, that's it's over. But that already shows you what they are going to miss.
but they still have Rafael, then the boost of Daniel is back. And look at the last match, they won just 1-0. So but with Lewandowski in the squad, units will change. And playing against the best defensive team in the Champions League is going to really have an effect. Then there was Balde out too, and it's Inter Milan pressing their wing back.
It's going to have another effect here.
But Inter Milan too will be missing their very, very powerful attacker in still. Do you think this will go a long way? Well, before we go into that, yes, Barcelona has shown that they could see the game free even with the absence of Lewandowski. However, a game against Mallorca over the course of the week, they had almost 40 shots on target. 40 shots attempted, about 13, 14 on targets, or just one goal. Now, says something. Is it lack of clinical finishing or good goalkeeping? However, we would not see such numbers if we had a formidable striker like Lewandowski on the pitch. So yes, Barcelona has shown they can see the game through without Lewandowski, but they would be missing Lewandowski. Now, on the other hand, Inter Milan too would be missing that very, very big, powerful striker too.
Talking about both players that have been missed by those teams, the impact of Lewandowski in that particular team cannot be overemphasized, because when you're looking at a player that could get your team 40 goals and the player is missing out in a match, of course, definitely you are going to miss that player. However, this season, Barcelona has a player that has actually done well than Lewandowski in the person of Rafinha. And for the age of Lamine Yamal, in fact, I don't think there's any player of his age that is doing what he's doing at this point in time. He has actually, gets to that team and done really well, as if he has been playing with the team for a number of years. For his age, his experience, his confidence, I don't think it is actually matched by any player at this point in time. And for Inter Milan, on the other hand, if you are to compare their performance against Bayern Munich, you'd realize that having a very solid defense is a very big flex for a team. But if the defense don't have their A game, we are talking about a Barcelona with very formidable attack. And looking at Inter Milan as a team, you would realize that over the course of the two legs, Bayern actually has a chance considering the possession and the number of shots on target that they had. But if you don't, if you don't get the goals, of course you are not going to get to the next round. And over the course of the two legs, I still feel Barcelona as a team stand a chance. And recently, you talked about Barcelona having 40 shots and getting 13 on target. At this stage of the season, in fact, even if you could get a goal in the first minute of the season, just make sure you don't concede. The most important thing at this stage of the season is just to get your 3 points. It is not about the flair. It is not about the number of goals you could get. It is not about you playing to entertain the fans. In fact, the fans would prefer to get a goal and have your 3 points rather than having a score draw of 4-4 or 5-5. So the 3 point is the most important. And in as much as the team is getting the needed points, I don't think we won't actually be really concerned about getting that number of shots and just getting a single goal, in as much as they don't give the room for the opponent to get back at them. So it's nothing to actually panic about for as a flick.
All right, let's talk about matches that may affect the team. We have Inter Milan who are, tired on the top of their team, so they are desperately vying for Serie title. And before Barcelona, they will be taking on AC Milan. After Barcelona's first make, they will be taking on Apex Rune. Barcelona, on the other hand, will be taking on Real Rouge. After that, they have a relatively easier try. It was made by third. Do you think these games come into play? Because there is the way on the legs, there's the partida go. There is the tactical approach by the coach. Should I rest players? Do I go all out? I made this one. Why? What do you think these matches will play?
Yes, it will play. It will play a very big role, especially with Inter Milan playing two crucial match. AC Milan, they are rival, and also AS Rome. So they are tied on the league table. So it's going to play a very crucial match. Barcelona El Clasico will play the most crucial to them. The El Clasico, at least they can rest some of their key players, one player Baladolia. So, but Inter Milan on the other hand has to use almost, and they're out to round. So it's not easy for you to just rotate. You can, if it was around, we can rotate the link to Aaron and Naturo. But right now, I think it's going to have effects coming to fatigue, or maybe the coach will either want to sacrifice one.
All right, let's talk about tactical approach. If you were Inzaghi, how would you approach this game against Hansi Flick? Tactically, you will be going to Barcelona's pull away from home, because they are not playing at the Camp Nou this season. They're playing at Montjuic.
I feel over the years, teams playing the second leg at home has actually been a very, very good experience for most of the teams.
It didn't work well for Real Madrid.
Well, it didn't work well for Real Madrid, and we all know the reason. Arsenal are just it has just the better team over the two legs. And talking about Inter Milan, what has actually been a plus for that team this season is their formidable defense. And for the records, they've considered the meanest goal in this season's Champions League. That should still be a kind of a plus for them. And going to playing away from home in the first leg, just feel they should try as much as they can. The same practice they adopt in the previous leg against Bayern Munich. Of course, Bayern had the most possession and they had series of attacks upon attacks, but they were able to soak the pressure. And when needed, they countered Bayern. Even when Bayern equalized at the death, they still went ahead to get the goal. That was just to tell us if Inter as a team, if they want to go out, they have players to hurt you. Not as if they're actually reliant on a single player. And most times, if you've seen Inter's games this season, you would realize that um, across the different position in the field, everyone usually have their A games. Talking from the defense to attack and even their midfielder. That was just to tell you it is not a team that solely rely on one player. I'm not disputing the fact that the team would definitely miss the service of Turan because he's a very formidable young attacker, and over time he has really assisted Martinez. But as a team, I feel if they could stand any chance against Barcelona, is just not to let in too much goals.
But that would be difficult.
Of course,
The most goals for you.
of course, it will. And if you are to look at the previous games against Dortmund, we would realize that one thing that worked against Dortmund was the fact that they considered that number of goals. Because if it were just 2 goals, the strength would definitely be there to at least go at Barcelona.
But then you also argue that Barcelona might not have approached the game with such lackadaisicality.
Well, at this stage of the competition, in fact, Barcelona as a team, they've actually they played Liverpool. PSG, that had a very very good advantage going into the second leg, and we all know what happened at the return leg. That's just to tell us over time we've seen teams coming back to defeat
But
last season where they actually overcome an heavy deficit over the first leg, isn't it?
Barcelona lost a player to a red card in the first half.
Well,
That is damaging.
red card is part of the game. But what I'm saying in essence is you having a very very huge mountain to climb in the return leg is always difficult for most teams. That's why over the course of the years you don't really see teams overcoming heavy deficits in the Champions League, because even if the goal is actually few, it's always a struggle. Playing at the semi-final, quarter-final of the Champions League, every players would always want to have their A game because they are very much aware that a slight mistake might actually cost the team. Now, talk more of a team conceding 3-4 goals, unreplied goals, and expecting to overturn it in the second leg. It's always so difficult. So if Inter as a team, they stand any chance in this particular stage of the competition, they can't afford to let in too much goals because that would be an unsurmountable mandate to climb, even if they're having the second leg at the San Siro.
All right. Inter Milan, however, on the other hand, like you rightfully said, are dependent largely on their defensive prowess. Now, Barcelona has depended on the ability to play together as a team and to outscore them. They played a defensive eye line that has worked and also come back to bite them on many occasions. Now, Barcelona will be approaching this game below head on, head boss. If you were Hans Polo, what would you do different? Knowing full well that we are going against a side that compact in force.
Girls and flick. I'll still stick to my formation, but I think Omo coming back would be a boost for him. And I personally, if I was at a play, I would play a false nine rather than using a nine since Lewandowski's run to eight. Well, maybe Dynamo as a false nine or bringing in Ferran Torres, but I think a false nine will be able to drag the central backfield out and that could be an advantage for him because it's not easy to just penetrate. We saw Bayern Munich try to penetrate, but they couldn't just get the finish. From Jan Sommer, the keeper, the three central backs, they have been very, very brilliant and exceptional. So I think a false nine up front, Danomo trying to all could play Caratorre also. Caratorre likes being involved in the game, so we can try and put their central backs out. Then I think you have Rafinha and Yama that can do damage to you at any time. So you will be starting with Rafinha, Yama, and then I would prefer Daniel Muzzle. Who would play? Who would be the players that they put together? Definitely Pedri, Dijon. Definitely. Or that could be better. Detroit Pesci has to play, man. I think Arnold has been brilliant, yes. Yes, that's right, man. That they said to the one of those O'Connell. Yes, I had been really brilliant. Derby, on the other hand, hasn't had his game the same as he used to. Well, I mean, we could argue that he's coming back. If you're Barcelona, is what are the team that you are tipping to qualify? Are you tipping them to qualify and qualify big? Or you are saying they would have to fight for it?
Of course, they would have to fight for it, but they have enough
They have the firepower.
firepower to actually get over the finish line by the end of the second leg.
From the beginning of this series, we've tipped Barcelona and Arsenal to make to the final. We're still sticking to that.
Yes, I'm still sticking to that.
All right, so bold predictions. What are your bold predictions for this fixture?
Well, for the first leg, Barcelona playing at home, I feel I'll still stick to the scoreline against Arsenal against their opponent, which is 3-1 in favor of Barcelona.
That would be more goals than Inter Milan has conceded in any match.
Wow. And they've not met Barcelona yet, so who knows?
Barcelona has also not met Inter Milan. Aha, so well, I'm taking a different opinion. I'm thinking in the opposite. The thing is, Inter Milan has the player to break Isoclick sideline. To break it, I said earlier when Barcelona was facing Dortmund about the quality Dortmund didn't have on the midfield. You have Mkhitaryan, Barella, and Kanalubu. They can move the ball. Mkhitaryan can roll with the ball. They are good passers. Barella can move with the ball. If they can carry the ball from midfield past Barcelona's half, they will really hurt Barcelona. They could break it. That's how you can break their high line. And they have the players to break the high line. And also, their defense cannot be easily broken. Bayern Munich did everything. They threw everything at it. They couldn't just break it. Though they considered 3 goals against Bayern Munich, yes, making it 5 goals considered in total. It's not going to be easy for Barcelona. So, but at home, I'm thinking of a draw. A draw at home for Barcelona. Yes. So going home, I'm going also with so Lewandowski is also, yes, is also king a very good fight because if I'm your opponent, Lewandowski is not playing. I'm more confident coming to the game. I have one less person to worry about.
Well, and even having one person to worry about might even work against an Inter Milan.
Yeah, I said a false nine would actually, for me, if I was as a flick, a false nine would work. Trying to pull, but being a player, if I'm going to the game, I'm coming with more confidence. I'm not chasing Lewandowski. Lewandowski needs to have the chance, like you said. 40 attempts, 13 on targets. And you lost, they are scoring just one. When Lewandowski was playing, how many on targets did he get?
Well, we can't, that's not that.
It's just like, I just talk about, we know the quality.
Of course, we can't dispute that.
They always can't say score. Rafinha let the ball high. The ball was almost going out. Many strikers will score that. Those kind of.
And even for his age, is really late driver. Yes, for his age.
40 goal.
All right, let's talk about something a little different. The race for the highest goal scorer at the Ever Champions League. Sebiu Girassi has 12 goals. 13 goals. Wow, that's a lot. And has 13 goals. However, he's no longer in the competition. Rafinha is utterly still with 12 goals. And Lewandowski is hot on Rafinha's tail with 11 goals. Harry Kane, who had 11 goals, also is no longer in the competition now.
Lewandowski is out here, right? The way say at least first the low seed. Are we tipping Rafinha to the highest today?
As the leading goal scorer, really, if Barcelona goes all the way, yes, Rafinha.
But you're not dodging on to. Because besides this, but the closest person to him is I think Lautaro Martinez. Who's
Actually, that's around, I think, 7 goals. It's
Saying if Barcelona goes all in it, yeah, Rafinha, if they don't,
then I think maybe it's higher. Because no can get a goal in either legs.
and even not even going all the way is just missing a single game. So all things being equal, he has 2 games to, overcome or tie with Giurase. But what you notice in the first leg with Rafinha is he has that hunger. You could see the goal he actually stole. The ball is almost across the line. And that was to let him know his hunger to get the goals. He just had to make sure that the ball got over the line. So that was just to tell you, I think that's a very big.
Playing Inter Milan without Lewandowski is another opportunity for him to actually.
Yes, and I don't think you would be actually be pressured as regards over the course of this season. He has faced a couple of teams. In fact, he's in the best form of his life. I don't think he has ever had any.
well, yeah, being clinical, going, he says you got short of your goals, your ISO scorer.
So he has more as her. So more responsibility, of course, of course.
All right, one more thing. One of the easiest, or rather, one of the ways to beat a defensive team is to have players you can beat 1 or 2 players. Now, Barcelona arguably have the best dribbler in form right now in their team in the person of Cemeteria or Lamine Yamal. Do you think Inzaghi has what it takes to stop Lamine Yamal, seeing what he has done over the course of the season?
I don't think Lamine Yamal is faced with playing any big team because for his age, at times when I watch Lamine Yamal, I thought like, are you sure this guy is actually 17? In fact, he has the the confidence of a 25-year-old, and for his age, having won the European Championship, I don't think anything would face him as a player again. And you can only get better if he remains fit. So he should just go about his game. In fact, he play for fun. And even after games, you see Lamel as if he has not even done anything. That's just to tell you the kind of mentality he has at that very young age.
Would you say that Lamine Yamal is capping early? Like, is there more that he would bring to the table, or you feel, oh, this is the ceiling? It can't possibly get better than this. Some of these players he casts early.
No, he's not, because he's in a team that is known for building players at the very young age. In fact, we can continue mentioning names that at very young age they've actually done well, and during the course of their season they still stand their ground. And the mentality is there. Barcelona as a football club, they have one of the best youth setup in the world, and that would be part of, over time, you would realize that it will be part of the discipline they've instilled in their players. And don't feel on top of the world. Just get the business done. And even after having a very good performance in a particular game, don't rest on your laurel. You can always do better. And that has always been the mentality with most of the players that started at that very young age. You could say more about Lionel Messi. Even for that age, for the number of years he's actually spent in Barcelona, you could see that level of hunger. And for a 17-year-old, having won the championship and still playing as if he has not even achieved anything in the game, that tells us about his mentality. And I feel he is in an environment that would make sure to nurture his talents and doesn't make him get off track. So he's in the best place to be as regards not feeling on top of the world or not being too confident about what he has achieved or the caliber of players he's playing with. In fact, he's even very lucky for you to be playing against somebody like Lewandowski, who is like double his age. And that was just to tell you, he has experienced players in the dressing room that will tell him that, Lami, you know what? Of course, you've done well in this particular game, but that doesn't mean you play the next game and you won't give in your all. So the pressure is, even for his age, the pressure is high. In as much as we want to leave out the pressure, but for a 17-year-old, for a 17-year-old player, team always expecting him to do well, to just perform a magic. In fact, just yesterday, he gave a very, very fantastic pass to Romo. If not for the brilliance of the goalkeeper, that would have been one of the best assists of the season. So that tells us about Will Lamine Yamal. And even after the game, you just see Lamine Yamal, it goes about his business. In fact, I would even say even the fans are even more wowed about what Lamine is doing. But for him, he's just consider it as a normal thing, that's it's not something out of this world.
So there you have it. You have Mr. Wasil giving an a relatively easy way to Barcelona over Inter Milan. But Mr. Bassett is arguing, predicting a draw. However, I think both of them agree that Barcelona had the edge to make it to the final. My name is Omishola Obasa, and this is MyOgba Football Fantasy. We'll catch you for the second leg.